What's going on? This is your man, Big Stu, Scott Stewart, or Professor Stewart. We are back for yet another edition of Dope People on the Dope People podcast. And again, I am not letting you down. We have a very, very exciting guest today. This conversation is going to be absolutely fun. We have the one, the only, Dr. Kenyatta Starks is in the building today, y'all. Make some noise for Dr. Kenyatta Starks. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let me tell you about this guest. Now, for those who don't know, who chiming in for the first time, my name is Scott Stewart. Like I said in the beginning, I am the host of Dope People. I'm an 18-time award-winning teacher of entrepreneurship who found his way into teaching because that ain't what I thought I was going to be doing. But here we are 20 years later. And I have done some pretty good things in education, but nothing like the guests that come on to Dope People. So I get this opportunity to sit at their feet, to learn what makes them so dope, what's worked, what's been some of the challenges, and what needs to happen going forward. But let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Starks. Dr. Kenyatta Starks. Now, I'm going to put some respect on this name here. Dr. Kenyatta Starks is the CEO of Starks Consulting, and she don't look nothing like it, but she's got 25 years of experience in education. She don't even look like it, right? Dr. Starks is, get this, she is a transformational and systems leader. Not one, not the other, both transformational and systems leader. Dr. Starks believes that relationships, she's serious about her words. She believes that relationships are one of the many critical levers for leadership to be successful. Dr. Kenyatta Starks.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Well, yeah. Your resume is impressive. And just for the record, full disclosure, I sit on the board for Starks Consulting. So ain't no bias here, but I'll just say I'm glad to have you here. Before we get too deep, I want the people, we've heard your resume, I want the people to get to know you a little more intimately since you're so serious about these relationships. Mm-hmm. Do you mind playing a little game of this or that with me?
No, not at all. Let's go.
I like that. Ain't no hesitation. That's a leader right there. I got the answer and we're going for it. This or that. Okay, so you're familiar with the game. You know how this goes. We're going to play a few short rounds. Give people a peek into who you are, right? Yep. Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Okay. Wonder Woman or Catwoman?
Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay. Spring? No. Winter or summer?
Summer.
Okay. A good book or a good movie?
A little bit of both, but I will go with a good movie first.
Okay. All right. Deep dish or thin crust?
Thin crust.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Are you from Chicago? Okay. All right. LeBron or MJ?
Ooh, and I'm a basketball head. Do you hear me?
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going
this or that. You got to be a good sport now. Be a good sport now. Don't let us down.
I gotta go with MJ.
All right. All right. Now let's dig in a little bit.
Okay.
Let's dig in a little bit. Teachers or principals?
Wow. Teachers or principals? Oh. I'm going to say teachers.
Ooh. Wow.
I'm going to say teachers.
Okay. Unions or non-unions?
Had both. You digging in.
I'm digging in.
I would have to say I would have to say unions. I'm really split down the middle, but unions.
Okay, all right. That's what leaders do. They make tough decisions.
Yep.
Last one. Traditional teaching or e-learning.
Lord. You just want me to answer, or do you want me to give an explanation? So
Give your answer first. Give your answer first.
okay, so I am going to say traditional,
Why?
but I don't believe in traditional. I believe in progressive. And what I do believe is that it should be a little bit of everything, right? It should fit whatever student is sitting in front of you. And I think you have a better opportunity of doing that in a traditional setting.
Wow. Wow. Even for today's learners and the learners of the future, like today's learners, let's just say you started school kindergarten right now. We just got back into the building. You're a kindergarten. Do you know traditional? Do you know e-learning? Or I'm gonna leave that question right there. Do you even know traditional as today's kindergarten?
Well, you may not, but here's the thing. Again, let me just go back. I picked traditional, but I believe in progressive. And so
Describe progressive.
I think progressive is where you are allowing everything that kids are actually experiencing to come into the classroom. So it's not just I talk to you and you do the work. It is a little bit of e-learning. It is a little bit of hands-on learning. It is a little bit of, I need you to do some one-on-one support. So I think it encompasses all of it. I don't agree with either to do traditional or e-learning as the end all be all for any student. I think that learning should be differentiated and scaffolded based on the learning needs of the students.
So we jumped ahead. We did some Hussein Bolt. we went light speed ahead in this kind. Now I get it. So let me back up. What kind of student were you in elementary school and high school? Mm-hmm.
So I had a mom who.
And are you from Chicago?
I am from Chicago, born and raised. Went to Chicago public schools, went to Dixon, graduated from Simeon High School, Simeon.
Right.
So yes, I am. And I was brought up in a single family home. It was my mom and I had two sisters. So it was all ladies. And my mom didn't play about education. And so I was a student that was on the honor roll. We had no choice. You could not get a C. We had to excel in school. It was not an option. And we did it. I think when I think back, I don't think that my mom helped me a lot with my homework. I don't feel like I needed a lot of support. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's because we had a foundation of making sure that we had what we needed. My mom was something, like she is still something. And so we were required and responsible to make sure we got what we needed in our education. And if we didn't know, we needed to make sure she understood what we didn't know so she can advocate for us.
Wow. You're describing an active parent.
Yes.
An active parent. Now, did you always know that you wanted to get into education? How did you wind up in education?
Oh, I didn't. So when I initially went to Simeon High School, I was in the nursing program. And I was like, nope, this is not going to work. So then I decided, because my mom, is in math, she does accounting, she did taxes. I said, I'm going to be an accountant. And I did that and I graduated with that. So then I left and I went on to college. And of course, I didn't major in anything that I talked about in high school. I went to criminal justice. Thought that was easy. And then I was like, you know what? No, let me try education. And then I got into education. I went to Illinois State for about 2 years. And then I transferred and came home and went to Chicago State. And that's where I started my journey in education. And while I was at Chicago State, I actually was teaching at a preschool in Roseland called Farr's Academy. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but I stayed there my entire time until I graduated. And then I went on to work in Chicago Public Schools as a teacher.
Dr. Starks, as they affectionately call you, the people who know you affectionately call you. Dr. Starks, what like, now this question is, may push a little button a little bit. Why teaching? Were you looking for the best career, or were you attracted by helping students? What was your motivation to choose this career?
Well, my motivation was that I knew eventually I would have kids. And what I didn't want is not to have an open door or transparency around what education was. I don't think that was important for my mom, but I knew that as I began taking classes and I worked in the preschool, I was like, oh, this is exactly for me. So when I came home to work in the preschool, it was because my mother said I needed to get a job and I had to pay some rent. So I knew I had to do something, but then it really came to me and I was like, you know what, this is going to be great. Not only to help other students, but also I will know what I need to do for my own sons. Okay. And it just turned into me caring about like the education of Black and brown kids. Like, and I think as I grew in my leadership, it's become even more serious. I think when I first became a teacher, and I'm very transparent. Like, I wasn't thinking about, what was actually being put in front of kids. I was actually doing what my principal told me to do. Mm-hmm. But as I reflect, I'm like, it wasn't right. Right. I mean, I should have done a better job as a teacher to make sure that kids needed and got what they were supposed to get. But instead, we were given this curriculum here, go teach this. Wow. But then as I reflect, and I think that was another reason why I wanted to get into leadership, because I felt like as a teacher, I didn't have any say so. So I felt like if I was able to step into a leadership role, I would be able to help teachers not make the same mistake I make and not put them in a box where they really can't help the kids that are sitting in front of them because we too busy checking the box about what they need to do.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that. Give it up for Dr. Starks for making that claim. So that level of self-awareness, that level of emotional intelligence, that wherewithal that you can see yourself. You saw something was wrong and you didn't just sit by and keep doing it. You decided to step up and do something about it. Dr. Starks, I talk to a lot of teachers. And right now, there are so many teachers and principals too, who feel abused, beat up, and unsupported. They're tired. They're frustrated. And while I'm having that conversation with some teachers, there's some other teachers. Let me be specific. There's some educational leaders that have a message for teachers who are talking like that and say, well, you in the wrong field. Like you can't, we don't need you in here complaining. You know what you signed up for. We need soldiers. We need boots on the ground. We don't have time for you complaining behind teachers. What's your position on that? That kind of, this seems to me, I'm on the outside looking in. I'm not in any school or school district. But it seems to be some infighting between teachers and principals. Are you noticing that? What's your take on that?
So I think it depends on the leadership. And so when I'm reflective about, so let me say this: teachers are the heartbeat of what happens in a building.
Because you picked principals. I said principals, teachers. You said teachers.
So teachers, like, if as leaders we can't understand what teachers need. Now let me just say this. Everybody is not, some people complaining just to complain, but you do have some people with legit, I'm tired, like, and I get it, because I can't say I taught in a pandemic. I can never say that. So with that level of just having a pandemic, ensuring that, like, when people take the role seriously, it can be stressful because you really want your kids to be successful. You really want your kids to walk away being citizens that can like function and be responsible. And thirdly, as I always approach education, if you want what you giving kids, if it's good enough for your own kids, then yeah, you may be tired because every day you showing up like each one of those kids are your own biological kids. So when I hear teachers say that, my first question to them is, how do we support as leaders? Like, what could we be doing? There are things that we can always do differently. I think that I know when I was a leader first starting, we didn't think about self-care for teachers. Like, it was always PD, let's go to PD. Well, what about the self-care? What about the emotional support that we always talk about that kids need? Teachers need those too. And I believe the more that we can embrace and give teachers the support that they need and really listen, everybody got the right to be tired. Everybody got the right to express how they feel. The bottom line is, how do we as leaders pick those teachers back up and get them rowing back in the right direction? Because the bottom line is, teachers impact everyday instruction. Everyday instruction impact results.
Wow. Teachers impact everyday instruction,
Mhm.
and everyday instruction impacts results.
Yep.
Wow, that's huge. Let me ask you. I want to make sure that you're able to kind of explain transformational leadership and these systems that we talk about. But before we go there, Dr. Starks, um, when I was in school long time ago, we were being prepped for jobs.
Mhm.
It wasn't even just go to college. It wasn't go to college. It was graduate and get a job. And I'm not saying it wasn't. College was college was you was gonna go to college. So everybody was going to college. Go to college, right? But you were going to get a job.
Mhm.
And now I'm hearing a big look. Can we trying to get you to college?
Mhm.
At least that's what it was in the last decade. Remembering 2018, 2019 was the last decade,
Mhm.
and that was pre-pandemic. Since the pandemic, we're now in the new decade. We're in the third decade of the year 2000, right? We're in the third decade.
Mhm.
And what are we preparing students for now? Is it college? Is it jobs? What is it?
It should be both. And I think it depends on the school and the school district. I think that most school districts will say, I'm preparing them for college, but we really, like, are we? Like, that's my question. And so I would say again, like, for me, this hits home because both of my boys, graduated from high school, and I pushed college because, like you said, that's what we grew. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. So my first son, I sent him to college. He just got back in. He's doing much better. He's a para. But then my second son was like, I don't want to go to college. So he became a certified welder. So what I believe, at a school setting in a district, we should be preparing students for all aspects, all opportunities. It shouldn't be a one-stop shop unless that student says to us, this is what I want to do. And most times kids really don't know. So there should be a way for them to experience, what does it look like to go out and do a trade? What does it look like to go to college? What does it look like to take a gap year, right? To sit out, really reflect, understand what you want to do, and go back to college or do whatever it is you want to do, but know the direction you want to go. And I think if we did that, if schools did a better job of that, and I mean, not starting in high school, like, we should be looking at kids starting at kindergarten, really trying to say, what are your interests? What do you want to do? And follow them along. And most people, Chicago public schools is hard because it's not really a continuum and you can go to different schools. But when I think about a unit district, that's feasible because most of those kids will stay there. So I think it's important when we say, what are we preparing kids for, I don't know if we're doing either one of them really well, but most people will say they're preparing them for college. But I would challenge them to say, okay, well then how many of your kids are not taking the regular English 098 and math 050, whatever it is in college. So I think we try to do a little bit of both, but I think most people are preparing, at least they think that they're preparing students to go to college.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that insight. So if we're depending on the district, depending on the focus, both of them are still viable. I may want to, pick your brain about what tomorrow's jobs look like, what jobs in the new year look like, what jobs are 2022 and 23, 2025, what does jobs of this decade, by the end of this decade, what do they look like? But then how are we, or what should educational leaders, superintendents, principals, how should they be preparing their teachers? This is where you talk about your transformational leadership. What problem are you solving, and what did you see was missing in the marketplace of education that created Starks Consulting and this transformational leadership journey that you're on?
So I found two things. The first one is that leaders who are walking into the role are not equipped to lead. And it can be for several reasons. It can be that they are in a district and there's just not that support, that wraparound support, again, that we continue to talk about for kids that adults also need. It also could be that they have not had the leadership role and this is their first time walking into this role and they need the support. So that's the first problem, making sure that when leaders come into the building that I'm filling the gaps, giving them the resources, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. My experience allows me to support in every aspect of leadership so that they can be successful.
In your work, there's some leaders that get, how do you know that an incoming leader has been transformed? Take us through what it looks like for a leader to not have the leadership skills, to having gone through your process and now be prepared for leadership. What does that look like?
That's a very good question. So of course it looks different from one individual to the next, but in general terms, you would see a person in the beginning that may not understand how to build those relationships, how to set systems up, how to hold people accountable, as well as supporting people. And then once they begin to go through the coaching and the support, because I believe in being on the ground, I believe in understanding the space that the leaders work in. And then we'll work through every week the certain tasks, the certain things that they need to do. I'm always a process observer. So then I'll say within 3 months, I should start seeing them picking up, okay, here's the system that I want to put in place. Now I need to understand, how do I communicate it? How do I give people the goals, set the goals? How do I make sure they understand the data? And how do I hold them accountable? That's just a rhythm that continues to go around and around and around, right? And then once they get that, then we start focusing on the bodies of work that need to happen. So in the school, teachers are our main focus. And so now what I want them to understand is, how do you get teachers? How do you build teachers' capacity to improve their everyday practice? So many times we want to go in and we want to go in once again, we want to evaluate teachers. Well, that's not fair. I believe that evaluations and observations, informal observations, should be two separate things and two separate people should do it. I don't think that if I'm evaluating the teacher, I can also be their coach. That's impossible, because when you're being coached, you're in a safe space and you don't feel like I got you, and you go in and you learn a certain strategy or skill, and then you're able to practice that. Right. And then you go back, the coach goes back and again, assist the teacher to make sure that they're getting it and that they see results. And when I say results meaning in their everyday practice. So as a leader, that would be another thing that you would see. You would start seeing teachers' practice improve because they would be following the structure. So we would calibrate, which means we would go into classrooms and we would look at instruction and we will make sure that we see instruction the same. right? Then the next thing would be we would go in, and then I would sit there, I would be a process observer, then we will come out and I would have her schedule a meeting with the teacher, and I would want to listen to what feedback she's going to give to the teacher. And then it'll continue to be a cycle. How do you work with that teacher? Again, you gotta build, and this is where I feel like a lot of leaders miss the buck. Like, I get that we gotta build the capacity of the leaders, but building the capacity of the leaders allows them to build the capacity of the teachers, which allow the teachers to build the capacity of the students.
That's actually really awesome. Now, don't get mad at me. Just help me understand something. I heard you mention, and clear this up for me, when you're doing these observations, when you're helping educational leaders, when they're evaluating, when they're doing teacher evaluations, one of the criteria is that maybe all grade levels or all content areas are on par. They're teaching the same. Did I hear that correctly?
No. So they don't
thank you, please.
So no, they don't
clear
have
that
to,
up for me.
they do not have to be teaching the same. Again, every teacher is different, but you may say, okay, so let's say we're going to work on gradual release, which is a teaching framework for teachers to use within the classroom. And when we go in as the leaders, maybe we're looking at one component of that gradual release. So you got a I do, a we do, and you do. So we may say we're going in the you do part, and during that part, we should see teachers scaffolding, doing kids should be in groups. There should be a teacher-led group. So you'll see some similar things, but everybody teaches different and everybody's content is different. So the way they apply and really engage students will totally look different.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clear, because that was one of my biggest hangups during teacher evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the troublemaker teacher. And I want to talk to you about that because I was favored by my students, not because I was a favorite, but because the students felt me as a teacher. They may not have liked me pushing them out of the hallways or holding them to a certain standard, but they knew every single day they came in my classroom, they were going to walk out enriched. They felt enriched every single class period. 80% of the students, 65 to 80% of the students, and 80 is optimal. That's almost 100%, right? But I didn't always check off all the boxes for the principal. It may not, and I was quick to say, I don't care about your evaluation. I'm having impact with these kids in this classroom, and they're getting what the lesson is for the day. Shouldn't these I do, we do, I do, you do, we do, shouldn't that be in every class? I mean, I know there might be one day is a lecture or one day is an assessment, but shouldn't teachers be doing that all day, every day anyway?
My answer is yes. Any school that I was in, they had to do that. Yes.
All day. I mean, it's just embedded in what they're doing with their students, period.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so I think, from representing teachers in this moment, the challenge sometimes I talked about this infighting that was always there, and infighting may not be the correct description. So I don't want to paint it as something bad is happening, but there is some constructive dialogue taking place about how teachers are being evaluated and how the leaders, the admin, the educational leaders are getting the data to support the work being done in the building, right? So what's the happy medium? What does that look like? What have you been to a school where you're like, oh, y'all got it. Ain't no need for me being here. On to the next. Like who's doing it right? What does doing it right even look like?
So here's the thing. I don't know if it's a doing it right. So let me just say this. I don't agree. I don't believe that one evaluation dictates who a teacher is. Like that's impossible for me. Like I can walk into your room one day and you can be sick, and that's your evaluation for the year. So maybe you did not show up as the teacher that I know you are. So I believe evaluations check the box. I do believe if they're done correctly with a component of coaching, it can be done right. But when you described yourself as a teacher, you were the type of teacher that I would probably leave alone, because you had the relationships. And so when you have relationships, this is what people don't understand. Kids will do what you need them to do. They want to make you proud. They want to make sure that they're successful because they know that's what you want for them. So I don't get caught up in evaluations. I do get caught up in coaching. Now, coaching is something that I take seriously, and I think it should be a part of every leader's practice. However, sometimes that's difficult because as a leader, you have to have been trained to coach. You have to have the patience to coach, and you absolutely have to believe in the teaching staff that is in front of you to be able to coach.
That is hard work. I swear by this book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It's by Malcolm Gladwell. I'll put it in the show notes for all the listeners. And the book is designed for people who are already high achieving. You're the doctor, your business does, $4 million a year already, but you're trying to get to 40 million. Right? You're already a level 1 school, but you're trying to get to a blue ribbon status. I don't know, something just above and beyond, but you feel stuck. And the whole premise of the book is, yeah, you were good enough to get here, but what got you here is not enough to get you there where you're trying to go. And it sounds like that's the real crux of what you do at Starks Consulting, helping to elevate already high achieving individuals to get to the next level. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and even if they're not high achieving, I think that anybody who wants the support, I think will benefit from it, because again, this is me being reflective about who I was as a leader and who I continue to grow to be as a leader, and just kind of helping people to not. I believe failure is part of leadership. So I would never say not fail. I believe that you have to fail in order to really, really be successful in a leadership role. But it's just the way that you get up and come back from that failure. So I think that, and here we go again. I think that school districts take for granted the support that leadership needs. And until we focus on the leadership, because it starts at the top, until we can focus on the leadership at the school and really give them what they need, you're going to keep seeing this cycle of unsuccessful leaders who are not going to be successful, not because they don't want to, but because they possibly were not equipped to be successful.
The right coaching.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Last 3 questions. What's working in education today? What's working in education? Let's give it up for education. What's dope about education today?
That is a very hard question for me. I think what's dope about education today is that I think it's a lot of autonomy. I think that when the pandemic happened, it allowed us to see education in a different light. It allowed us to take a step forward that I think right now we're still stuck, because I don't think people know how to move to the next level. I think that they threw a lot of money at the schools that would allow them to really take the next step to be able to do that. So I think that's really dope. And I hope that school districts and superintendents and principals are really utilizing that money to maximize the needs of their kids that are in front of them, and not just buying curriculum and doing things, but like really thinking outside the box to make sure that they're transforming and taking advantage of this opportunity that we have in front of us.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't ask myself the question. I asked you the question. But yeah, the access to technology is dope. There are a lot of buildings that got a lot of tech sitting around. That's my jab. They're sitting around. There's a lot of tech around here, but So that's dope. It is a lot of tech. Now, who's working it and knows how to work it and use it, that's another question. But there's a lot of tech in some of these buildings, right? A lot of capacity. What needs to continue to be worked on, Dr. Starks?
Ooh. Leadership. I think
Leadership.
the leadership needs to continue to be worked on. I think that I will always say it starts there. I think the more we can work on and equip leadership to be successful in their role, I think it will be a domino effect. I think what else need to continue to be worked on is that leaders have to understand that teachers are the heartbeat of their schools. And how do you support your teachers in a way where you have a trusting, transparent, and accountable relationship? It has happened. I have done it in every school. Nobody can tell me it is not possible. I know that it's possible, but I think we have to continue to work on that as leaders. And I would just say to leaders, get away from the titles. Yes, we know you're the principal. We know you're the assistant principal. But the bottom line is that when we got to get the work done, everybody should be rolling up their sleeves to make sure that every student that ever walks into your school building gets exactly what you would expect for your own kid to get. And that makes the work simple.
That's dope. That's dope. School of the future. Last question. School of tomorrow.
Oh, yes. For me,
describe that.
I would love to see like students really picking what they want. Like us not saying, okay, here are your course requests. You need to choose from here. I would love to see them to have like so many opportunities that really focus on different things that they can do when they go in the world. So let's say if they wanted to go into a trade school, if they wanted to get a job, if they wanted to go into the military, like what options are there? Because I think that like when we talked about all of the tech, like I think we're missing that boat too in the schools. We don't focus on that, right? Because we too busy saying, okay, you need to take English. Oh, you need to take math. I get it. They do. But how can it be incorporated where they're getting that through not just a regular English and a regular math class? So I think that's what I would like to see. I would like to see teachers being facilitators in a way where when you walk into the classroom, they're there, but the kids are like running it. I mean, like they are facilitating, they're handling everything, and the teacher is just there to make sure that everything goes smoothly. I would also want to see, I would love to see evaluations go away, and I would love to see the focus be around really coaching and leaders approaching coaching as not a got you, but really a genuine way to support teachers and improve practice.
Wow. I know a lot of people are interested in you right now, just off that alone. And evaluations go away, just gonna coach me?
Yeah, that's I think right. Coaching. Yeah.
That's right. Because I could appreciate that. I could appreciate that as a teacher, being coached, being mentored, and then being prepped to also be a leader and coach and mentor. That's how you create a dope cycle of success.
Yep.
And that is good. That's really, really good. Dr. Kenyatta Starks, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you sit down on Dope People today. Any final thoughts, anything you want people, educational leaders, the listeners of this show, to really understand about you or the work you do or what you stand for, what they should be focused on? What are your final thoughts for this episode?
I would say that I want you as like leaders, when I think about leaders, leadership is a huge responsibility, especially when we're leading in a school setting, because we have all of these babies that we are responsible for. And so I want to leave every leader with the thought of make sure that you're building like I will say to you, relationships, because the more you can build those trusting relationships, the better your morale in your school, like you will get people and staff, students to do whatever you need them to do. I also want you to make sure you're investing in yourself, like continued. Sometimes we get into leadership positions and we think we know it all. Well, we don't know it all. And I've been at 25 years and I'm still learning. When I work in school districts, I learn from the people that I am assisting. And that is the goal. Like, I want to continue to learn. So just continue to make sure that you are reinventing yourself and making sure you're being reflective. If you don't do nothing once a week, sit down and be reflective about your leadership for the week. It would allow you to capture some moments that maybe you could have done things differently. And I leave you with this. Failure is part of leadership. You got to listen to your teachers. You got to hear them and you have to support them, because no matter what you may believe, teachers move outcomes. And so at the end of the day, in order for our kids to be able to get what they need and be successful in the classroom, you got to have a teacher that is dope. So I just want you to know, leaders, let me just say this, leaders make teachers dope. So if you want, if you feel like you want to do that, like, it's not hard to do. Build those relationships. And again, I got to put a plug for my business. I am out here. Please contact me. I have a website at www.kstarks.com. Reach out to me. I'm more than willing just to even have a conversation, to kind of talk to you about how do you get yourself in a position where you are successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Dope People. I've said it already. Dr. Kenyatta Starks, the CEO of Starks Consulting, developing leaders, creating leaders, supporting leaders that support teachers, that ultimately support our young people to make for better people in today's world. It has been an absolute honor. And if you want to get in touch with Dr. Starks, please check the show notes. All the links to her company's website, to her LinkedIn, it's all will be in the show notes. Please reach out to her and let her know that you heard it first on Dope People. You already know what it is. Until next time, peace.